And seriously though, Frank, glad to hear that you're feeling better. Thank you. Thank you so much, Paul. And I'm going to bring my wonderful guest on. And there he is the lovely Derek Shelmerdine. Good evening, Derek.
Oh, Frank, good to see you again.
And yeah. And I'm going to bring on our lovely, it's me mate. There he is. Anthony, good evening.
Good evening. Good evening, Frank. Good evening, Derek.
Hi, Anthony.
Hope you're good.
Perfect. Yeah, well, nearly perfect.
Very good. Very good. Anyway, I've got to ask Derek, you know. Leader WizKid says, hello, Derek.
Hi.
Lynn Ellis says, hi, Derek.
Hi.
Leader WizKid again. Hello, Anthony.
Hi, Lee. Good evening.
And then, hi, Anthony. Hope you're all well. Hope to see you on this coach tour.
Brilliant.
Yeah, we're going to do a coach tour. And all around Liverpool and what. So, sorting it out now, right now as we speak. So, Derek, Dickie Valentine and Eddie Cochran. Do you remember them?
Yeah, absolutely. I mean, two slightly different characters.
Oh, well, yeah.
I remember Dickie Valentine had one of the very first Christmas hits with the Christmas Alphabet.
Yeah.
It was probably about 3 or 4 years after the charts in the UK started, because they didn't start till about 52 with the NME. And Eddie Cochran, of course, I mean, wow, what a great rock and roller he was. And interesting enough, he sadly died on a tour of, or the end of a tour of the UK. He played Bristol, I think, for about a 5-night residency. He was certainly there a few nights. And he was driving back to Heathrow because he wanted to fly straight out the following morning. And sadly...
Oh, he's going back to the States. He was off actually.
That's right. And sadly crashed and he was killed. And one of the young policemen, a police cadet, who attended that was actually Dave D.
Oh, God.
Yeah, I can't remember his actual name, but he was Dave D.
Yeah, he was a copper, wasn't he?
Yeah, that's right. So, you know, in another world somewhere, there's a Dave D, Dozy Beaky Mick and Titch without a Dave D.
Yeah.
DC somebody.
Yeah, Dave D, Dozy Beaky Mick and Titch. That was the worst. I mean, you can't name a band any worse than that. But everyone named them. Dave D, Dozy Beaky Mick and Titch.
Yeah, they had a great tick called Hold Tight. Very sort of drum heavy, right on the beat. Counted 3.
Xanadu was in it as well.
That's right. That was theirs with a whip.
Hang on. What's her name? What's her bloody name? Was she on that same record? Blimey. She wasn't Australian, she was really English.
Right.
She was in Greece and everything else, and she's just recently died, unfortunately.
I think she did
Olivia Newton.
Yeah. That's right. Olivia Newton-John.
I think there was a cover, wasn't it, in the 80s?
Yeah.
Like a cover version of it?
Yeah.
Oh, so she done a cover version. So I remember her singing it.
Yeah.
I do too, but not on the original hit. An odd song to cover, but obviously it's a charts again, I think, in the 80s at some point. Yeah.
Well, yeah, there's some of the lads, and Leader WizKid says, I love Eddie Cochran.
Yeah.
So he knows him, and
well, that's great.
Neil Broderick, is it true? That'll be for you, Derek. Is it true that Motley Hooper were the first ever band to do a stadium tour in the USA?
I'm not sure. I mean, the Beatles actually played Shea Stadium, which is one of the very earliest, if not the earliest, stadium gig. But I mean, that wasn't a stadium tour, obviously. So to be honest, I'm not really sure if anybody would have had a stadium only tour. I'm not sure who would lay claim to that. It might well be. I mean, they were the kind of band that, classic. They were absolutely superb live, and the records are really good as well. But they're one of those bands that never really, I think, captured the brilliance of their live performance.
I actually seen them live, you know, Derek. I seen them live on the Liverpool Stadium.
Yeah.
I think 71 or 72, I'm not quite so sure now. And I'll tell you who was on. I went down, you know, solely to see them, but who was on who else was on? You know, another super group at the time was Hawkwind.
Oh, right.
Oh, brilliant. Go and see them. And then my girlfriend, she's passed on. And I said, do you fancy going to see them? She went, yeah, great. You know, so we went, seen them. And then I was on a radio show and an email came through because I was actually talking about the first ever boxing stadium to be erected in the country, because Liverpool boxing stadium. Yeah. And I said, you know, to the presenter, I said, you know what? I said, I went to see not the Hoople and Hawkwind, and a thing came through. Now, here's what I said as well as I was talking before this email came through. I said, to be honest, I said, it was great. There was about 4 bands on, including, you know, those two, you know, there was 2 other bands. I said, and they were brilliant. You know, the supporting groups, I said, they were brilliant. And an email came through, and I said, I was there, Frank, that night. With Hawkwind, not the Hoople, and one of the support bands was Queen.
Oh, wow.
So I seen them, you know, live, unbeknown. You know, it's unbelievable.
Well, everybody's got to start somewhere.
Yes, of course. Yeah, I'll lead the whiz kid. Bend it. Yeah.
Oh, absolutely. Bend it, shape it. Yeah.
Yeah.
There's another good Cochrane link to the Beatles as well. When Paul McCartney met John and auditioned for him, basically to get in the Quarrymen, the song he played was 20 Flight Rock, and John Lennon was very impressed with the fact that Paul knew all the words and the chords. Yeah. So there's a nice little link with the Beatles.
It's mad there, isn't it?
It's kind of one of the big tragedies of rock, of course, that rock music, pop music becomes an industry before you know it, and they've got to fly all over the place. And in the late 50s and the early 60s, it was so basic, wasn't it? We lost an incredible number of talented people, Buddy Holly, Eddie Cochran, all people who needed to get from A to back home and stuff, and even right up until through the 80s and 90s, and Otis Redding and sorts of people were lost in transit.
Oh, absolutely.
Trying to get home, weren't they? Yeah. Because the tours were so grueling and absolutely nightmarish. I remember reading about the Buddy Holly tour, and they were on frozen, snowbound buses, and it took forever to get from one state to another to gig, and that's why they hired the plane, which ultimately brought them down.
Well, according to Martin McGrath, Jeff Lynne wrote Xanadu, and as Ian Max says, or Leader WizKid, he says it was a different Xanadu than Josie Beattie. Olivia Newton-John Xanadu, and as the Lee says, different song altogether. And Jeff Lynne wrote it, says Martin McGrath, you know, so.
All right.
That's mad, isn't it?
Yeah.
How is that?
But going back to that Buddy Holly tour, you're absolutely right. I mean, what it was the American Midwest, the Bible Belt in the middle of winter. I used to go there to Fargo, North Dakota, which is where they were flying to. And you literally could throw a cup of hot coffee into the air in midwinter and it would be frozen before you hit the ground. You know, the snow was on the ground from the November through to the March at least.
Wow.
And I remember coming into the airport for a meeting there one December. And while I was standing waiting for the hotel minibus to come and pick me up to take me to the hotel, these cars started to drive in. And these are just regular, you know, cars, people's cars. And they've got snow plows on the front of them. I thought, whoa, this is pretty interesting. But actually, when that plane crash happened, the drummer on the tour, he'd actually been hospitalized, which is why he wasn't there that day, with frostbite in the tour bus.
I remember hearing that. And it sounds so horrific, really, and so basic. Nowadays we've moved on. Thank touch wood, you know, technology, flights and everything. But wow, it was quite basic then days, wasn't it?
That's right.
Even through to, I always draw a parallel between Buddy Holly and there's one of my favourite musicians, a guy called Stevie Ray Vaughan, who died in 1990, similar circumstances, flew off into fog and snow, and pilot couldn't or didn't see the mountain, and they drove into it. Such a tragedy of life on the road, I guess. Is that such a common thing? No.
Yeah, you've got the famous Lynyrd Skynyrd crash as well, killed half the band. Yeah. I mean, they were a great Southern band. Lynyrd Skynyrd. I love them.
I love them as well.
Yeah. Well, yeah, let's go through some of these. Chris Dick says, the Beatles Shea Stadium claimed to be the first stadium gig. Mott in a Motta Hoople were different style and underrated. Of course they were.
Absolutely.
Ian Max says, Travelling Wilburys, brilliant. Jeff Lynne, George Harrison, Bob Dylan, Tom Petty and Roy Orbison. Look at all them there. You know,
that's a
we've only got Bob, haven't we, and Jeff, that's still going today. What a band that was. What a superstar. Talking of Hawkwinds, I went to see Motorhead live in Llandudno and got to meet Lemmy. Brilliant Lemmy.
Yeah.
And you know, I don't know whether you're not, you might have said actually, might have been talking about it because you've been on for yonks. I'm sorry, Derek. You might have been talking about them, you know. I might have asked you, I just don't know. But Lemmy, he'd never sang, and they asked him when they were, you know, Silver Machine, and they said, "Will you sing it?" And he went, "Yeah, all right." So, you know, he sang it.
I mean, yeah, apparently the story goes how he joined the band. He was in the audience, and somebody said, "Can you play with the bass guitar?" He said, "Yeah, he'd never played one before." He got up and he played it. But I love the story about how Lemmy came to leave Hawkwind. They were touring North America, and they were traveling across the border from the USA into Canada to do some gigs there. And he got stopped, as you do, by the border forces who found this white powder. So they went away and analysed it, and it turned out that it was only amphetamine, and the Canadian authorities didn't see amphetamine as any kind of proper drug. They were hoping it was coke or smack or whatever. Now, the happy end is that they didn't take any further action against him. The sad end is that Hawkwind fired him anyway.
Did they? Oh, I didn't know that.
They fired him. That's why he went off and created Motorhead. And in fact, Motorhead was the last song he wrote for them. I think it was a B-side of one of their singles, and I'm pretty sure it was the last song he actually wrote for Hawkwind.
I thought that he just walked away.
I love that against adversity thing where something great comes from that adversity. So he's fired from a band. The only name that I ever remember from Hawkwind is Lemmy. You know, I couldn't tell you any others because it was just slightly out of sync with the gear, the stuff that I was listening to. But Mott the Hoople were part of it. I know David Bowie had a big hand in kind of behind scenes writing for Mott the Hoople and stuff. And
yeah, what happened with Mott the Hoople and Bowie was that Mott the Hoople, they got very dismayed at the fact that they couldn't seem to get any hit records. They were going down like a storm everywhere they played, but commercially they really weren't cracking it. So they played a tour of Switzerland and probably around that sort of area. And they played one particular gig, and it was in Zurich, I think. And in fact, they called the song something like I can't remember what it was now, but the date of the gig, Zurich, was the time. It's called something like the sad tale of Mott the Hoople. That wasn't it, but it was basically a swan song. And Bowie came to hear about the fact that they were splitting up, and he was quite dismayed because he really liked them. So he went and offered them Suffragette City, and they said, "Oh, it's a very nice song, David, but we don't really want that." So he gave them the other one, not Roll Away the Stone. The big Bowie hit that they had that revived their career.
All the Young Dudes.
All the Young Dudes, yeah.
Yeah.
So that Bowie basically rescued them from dismay and
absolutely fantastic song. That I love that. Yeah.
Can I show something now, lads? Because I want to show this. Look at this. Hang on, let me just hide this. Just let me hide this. Do you know what that is? I'll tell you what it is. It's the actual plan of this.
Oh,
the castle, the Liverpool castle that I'm sitting there in front of. Isn't that brilliant?
It is, isn't
it? The little picture on the left, because a replica was made. They wanted to build a replica, Lord Lieberhuhn, and they said, no, you can't. You know, he wanted to build it near the site of the Liverpool castle, where it was the original site in Liverpool, where Victoria's monument's in. And they said, no, there's things earmarked for that. So anyway, he said, okay. And he went up to his land at Rivington Pike, where there was a massive reservoir, and also was flat ground, everything. And he built his castle there, and that was the plan. That's the Rivington Pike Castle. And I've been there loads of times. Used to take my students up there, and there it is. Look at that.
Amazing.
Isn't that wonderful? This is at Rivington Pike. This is an exact replica. And someone said to me, well, why didn't he build it, like properly? Why did they build it the way they did? Finished? I said, no. I said, it was built exactly how it was left before they demolished it, in Liverpool. So it was just built like that.
Yeah.
Like the ruin. But aren't they brilliant? These things.
Yeah.
That's a fireplace, that.
Yeah.
Absolutely brilliant. Look. Arches. Look at that. Isn't that brilliant?
Mm.
Look at that. I'll have a guess. No, I won't let you. Won't let you guess. Who took those pictures? Was Jason, because Jason had to bring his little daughter, Ayla, up to this show jumping place, and it was near there. So he said, rather than come back and wait around for 4 hours, then go back for Ayla, he said, look, that was only a few miles down the road. He said, and I heard you talking about it. So I went down to see it, and he took all the pictures. Jason. And he said, I've got some pictures, you know. I said, have you? He said, yeah. So, and it was like, brilliant.
They're great pictures, yeah.
Yeah, you know, because I used to bring my students up there. And they were not inspired, but they loved it. They actually loved the place, you know. They couldn't get over it because how big it was. Because it is huge, you know. It's not just a little see the fireplace again. See the arches. There's loads there. There's loads to see. And they were quite surprised when they were touring around. I was talking about it, you know, the history of the castle. And look at that. Now that's one of those turrets. That's one of the, you know, one of these. I got my coordination on it. It's one of these.
Yeah.
You know what I mean? And go, I can't even bloody see. Oh yeah. It's one of them. One of them is, you know, a turret. And I used to bring them there, you know, the students, and we used to look over. Fantastic, you know. Look at that. See the passages and absolutely incredible. Yeah, look, that was that. What was there? Look, that sort of there.
Yeah.
Because I remember it well. That's that. You know, that sort of there, that was that. I'm looking over, it's amazing. Just amazing. Great pictures, them, aren't they?
Absolutely.
Yeah.
You know, and you know, the castle itself, our castle. The unfortunate thing was that when preservationists saying, don't knock it down, whatever you do, please don't knock it down. It's the first building in Liverpool to be built, you know, big building, which it was, you know, because around the Liverpool area, just you know, they were down by the pool, you know, what we call the pool, then, which another river it was coming off the Mersey, and it's just a couple of shacks there. Now those shacks were just for people who fished. When they wanted to fish, you know, they went out fish, brought the you know, the catch back to those shacks, and then went back to Everton or Toxteth or Walton or wherever, you know, surrounding areas, Kirkdale or wherever. But there was nothing in Liverpool, you see, nothing in Liverpool. So when he decided in 1207, King John, to give the Royal Charter, but William G. Ferris said, you know, he said, listen, we'll have to build a castle. And I'll tell you for why. You know, people wonder why, you know, we built a castle. The likes of the Welsh, they built castles. We built castles all around the country, as you know. And was mostly sure. And what it was, what we did, there was an Irish fella, and he came over in a one-masted boat to trade. Now the antiquary, King John's antiquary, who was viewing this place, this unknown place, about the Irish, because at that time, you're talking 1207, the Irish had great Spanish influence. Because lots of, you know, the Armada and all that, you know, loads went to Ireland and they just stayed in Ireland. So they still thought that the Welsh, the Spanish, greatly influenced, because they greatly influenced the Irish, if you know what I mean. Because that was a different entity anyway, a different country. It was a foreign country. It wasn't like today, if you know what I mean. Wales the same, you know, they were a different country. And Scotland. So we always protected ourselves. The English always protected. So that castle was built just in case the Spanish came. There was another Armada or whatever, you know.
Yeah.
So that's why that was built, to be honest. And yet they knocked it down in 1723.
Tragedy.
Of course. Just imagine that now, where Victoria's monument is.
Fantastic.
As I said, it was just like, let me show you it again. Just like that, you know what I mean? Just like that. That's what it would have been like.
Yeah.
Fantastic. And it's such a shame, really, you know, that we did knock it down, because there are cities, you know, that have got castles.
Yeah.
They've left them. We knock things down. But it's not only bloody castles that we knock down, you know, it's other stuff as well. Other stuff as well. Look at this. Eddie's last song was 3 Steps to It. Yeah.
Absolutely. Prophetic, to say the least.
Wasn't that it? If you
Apparently on that tour in the UK, Mark Bolan, he played a gig in London, and the story goes that Mark Bolan carried his guitar from the theatre to his awaiting limousine, and he was very proud of that.
And Silver Machine was a classic by Hawkwind.
Oh, absolutely.
That's
the
right.
best song ever.
Yeah.
The best song ever. Oh, Jamie, you'll be gone now. Good evening, Frankie baby. Good evening, Jamie. Frankie baby. Joe Meek, Buddy. Hang on. Joe Meek, Buddy Holly connection is interesting. Joe Meek and Buddy Holly.
Well, I think what the reference there is that Joe Meek killed himself on the anniversary of Buddy Holly's death. You know, Joe Meek murdered his. I think it was murder. He certainly shot to dead his landlady, and then turned a shotgun on himself. And I'm pretty sure it was on the anniversary of Buddy Holly's death, because he was a really, really big Buddy Holly fan, Joe Meek.
Wow.
I mean, he's one of the unsung heroes, really, of British rock, as it were, British rock and roll. I mean, John Layton, Johnny Remember Me, absolutely fabulous. And he used to record famously in his home in Holloway, and to get echo, he'd record people in the bathroom, because all hard surfaces, so lots of echo, and in corridors and all kinds of stuff.
What do you think of that? What Neil Broderick says?
Paul McCartney used to book it.
Paul McCartney used to
right.
book hotels using a pseudonym named Paul Ramone.
Well,
That's
exactly.
why the band Ramones chose that name. Is that right?
Oh, that's absolutely right. I think it was Paul Ramon. And when it was when they failed that Billy Fiore audition, and then they were given a tour. Larry Parnes gave them a tour with Johnny Gentle, a tour of Scotland, and it was the first time the Beatles had really stopped being semi-professional almost. I remember Paul McCartney making a quote about the fact that now we're proper musicians, we need proper stage names. So he called himself Paul Ramon. John Lennon called himself Long John Silver, or Long John. They were the Silver Beatles at the time. And I forget the artist. It was a German artist that Stuart Sutcliffe named himself after. George called himself Carl Perkins. So called himself Carl Harrison after Carl Perkins.
Okay. Yeah, because he liked him, didn't he?
Oh, yeah, absolutely. Well, they recorded 3 of his songs, didn't they? Well, 3 that Carl Perkins claimed to be his songs. I mean, 2 of them are a bit dubious, but they stopped using the stage name shortly after that particular tour. And one of the stories seems to be that John Lennon wasn't that keen to be Long John Silver, Silver Beatles. So, the name stopped. But it's absolutely true. Paul Ramon was a very big Beatles fan, particularly McCartney fan. And they did it as a sort of skit on the Jackson 5, the Thingy Family, and all those sort of middle-of-the-road bands who were using those sort of names. So he persuaded the rest of the band to pick up the Ramon, and they all call themselves Ramon.
Well, the Emperor Ross says, good evening, Frankie and gentlemen. Hope you're all well and chat. I'll drink these.
Well, there's a night out for you.
I'll drink these.
Isn't
Oh, fantastic. And Lynn Ellis says, Buddy Holly was fantastic. Died too young. Absolutely.
Oh, absolutely.
Yeah.
And, didn't the Big Bopper die in the same aircraft, says the Lee Win?
Absolutely right.
He was on. And Richie Valens.
Yeah.
Yeah. Who?
Richie Valens.
Richie Valens, yes.
Yeah, there's real irony there with the Richie Valens one. What happened is Buddy Holly's backing band at the time were due to fly on the plane with him, and they swapped seats with the Big Bopper and Richie Valens. And Richie Valens actually won the toss of a coin. Yeah. So great irony, I think there. And I'm sure it was Bobby V. When they didn't cancel the show. They were flying to Fargo because they were playing the gig in Moorhead, a nearby town. I technically know the state, but it wasn't very far away. And Fargo was the main airport. And when the news of Holly's death came out, the sort of cry went around Fargo to find some local musicians to play, because they were playing that night. I mean, the gig went forward, and Bobby V. He couldn't have been very old. And believe it or not, his backing band at the time was called The Shadows. And it was the beginning of Bobby V's career. You know, he went on to big things after that. So, you know, it gave him his big break, basically.
Wow. Bobby V. From Italian descent, Bobby. Do you know that? Yeah. But, yeah, all the Bobbies, like Bobby Darren.
Yeah.
Bobby, I forget his name now. Bobby, anyway. But anyway, I'm feeling way ahead of you, drinks. Kinks were also, I don't think the Kinks were ever underrated. Also, love Clearwater. What did you think of those? I'll go to Anthony rather than the expert. Well, Anthony's in the bands anyway, so what did you think of Creedence Clearwater Revival?
Yeah, I thought they were brilliant at the time, but again, it wasn't. It was kind of just passing on my radar. There was so much great stuff coming out, and for me, I started playing 78, 79 in earnest, but we had so much going on. I was kind of still drawn to the 60s giants, the Hendrix, the Who, the Beatles, obviously, forever, and Lennon. And then the new discoveries, people like John Martin, and, one of the greatest tribute songs ever. I was about Buddy Holly, which I loved, which was the American Pie, which was massive for years. John McLean, and that was all around. Musicianship was just craftsmanship. It was just fantastic, and it was very much a anyone who aspired to be a musician. You had the perfect encyclopedias in every song that was released, and Bowie on side.
Do you know what I was watching? I was watching on YouTube, just going through, like this music. I love classical music, and I seen Lennon.
Yeah.
And it was in the recording studio. I think it was for the album. For Phil Spector, and he was live. He was live singing, and he was brilliant. And do you know what it was? Slipping on a Slide.
Rock and roll.
Has anyone seen it?
Yeah.
Has anyone seen that on YouTube?
Yeah, big time. Well, there's a wonderful thing that a legend, I'm sure we'd agree, a chap called Bob Harris, Old Grey Whistle.
Bob Harris.
Because as we were younger, as we're growing up, the Old Grey Whistle test was kind of the holy grail of British TV, if you like music. and you listen to that, and you got all sorts of stuff. And I think it was 74. He did an interview with John Lennon, and he had the cap on, flat cap, the long hair and the scarf. And they went through the interview, and then it cut into recording time. And he's singing Stand By Me, which of course is Benny King's song. But I have never heard a rock and roll singer sound as amazing as that. And
I said that, Anthony, I'm sorry to cut in. I was having a drink, honest to God, I was having a drink when I went to the function, and I was drinking with Billy Paul, Percy Sledge, and Benny King. And I said to him about Lennon's Stand By Me. Yeah. I said, it's great, which I had to say to Benny King. And I said, but John Lennon's Stand By Me was the best cover I've ever heard of any cover of any song, because he put his heart into it. He put his whole heart into it. So is that what you're going to say?
And that's exactly what I was going to say, Frank. And you see it in that clip. You see it, going back to 74. So there's no camera trickery. There's none of that. It's just one shot. And there he is from the side angle. And just magnificent is the word for it. And there's a famous or infamous Manchester band who came out big in the 90s, who I never rated at all, because it's a bit like copy and paste. And they got their entire career, their singing,
based on the Beatles,
from that clip and that song.
Yeah.
And that's as close as I get to name it. As did many other people. I mean, for me, that was like amazing. So that's what. Although Creedence of Clearwater and everyone were firing off, and some brilliant music going on, there's always got to be something that when you walked into college or when you walked in the playground the next day, everyone would say, "Wow, did you see that last night? That was." And that moment that you described, Frank, that song, and that was that moment. That was just brilliant.
But he agrees with me.
I was there all night when you were with the boys, yeah. I mean, you in the middle of the guys, yeah. No.
Do you know what I mean?
How humble were they? These are just normal guys.
Humbled, God, he was so humble. And I said to I was calling him Benny, and Benny said, I just won't be a moment. He said, I will be back. This is interesting, so we walked away.
Yeah.
And I said, do we call him Benny? He said, no, it's Ben Evie. Because I heard them calling him Ben.
Benny.
Yeah.
Right. And anyway, when he came back, I said, excuse me, Ben, I'm awfully sorry to keep calling you Benny. He said, lots of presidents have called me Benny. He said, it's okay. Presidents calling him Benny. And they were just laughing, the lads, Billy Paul and Percy Sledge. You want to see the photograph, Anthony, of Francine getting in a cab, because we were going down to, I forget where we were going. And he said, so we got in the cab, and Percy Sledge was getting out. And this is at midnight, Anthony. And he had these shades on. And Francine got in, and she said, Dad, take this cat, take it. She had a camera. She said, take a photograph. So I took the photograph, and I said to Percy, I said, what are you wearing your shades for? I said, I wouldn't be able to see in them. And he went, man, honestly, he said, all legends wear shades. I just said, oh, yeah, all right then. What did you think about it?
I just there's a great story actually about the Benny King version of the Drifters and how they came about.
Oh.
What it was, if you like, the original Drifters were losing their way a little bit. The lead singer had moved on; they hadn't had a hit for some little while, and they were playing a week-long residency in Harlem, the Apollo, I think it was, and the Drifters were on for that week, and Benny King's group, I think they were the Four Kings, were on that same week as well, and the manager. Somebody called, I think his name was Treadwell, something like that. But he actually owned the rights. He owned the copyright on the name The Drifters. So basically that was his property. And what happened at the end of that week? He really rated Benny King. So what he did, he sacked the entire Drifters group. And went to Benny King and said, "How would you like to be the Drifters?" "Oh, yes, please," because they'd had loads of hits by that point. So Benny King, they changed the name, and of course, Benny King was then out on the road as Benny King's group as the Drifters, and the original Drifters then, or the group that were the Drifters, they took a dim view and took it to the courts to say, "Hey, look, we're the original Drifters." And so the court agreed with them. So they could go out on the road as the original Drifters, and Benny King's group was out on the road with the original manager as the Drifters. And famously, there have been several versions of the Drifters over the years, and hasn't been uncommon for there to be two or possibly even three groups calling themselves the Drifters on the road at the same time.
Well, isn't that very similar to? I love this group because I used to watch them on the Iron Door. They were the resident group, the Searchers. And when they broke up, I actually interviewed Mike Pender on my show. And, when they broke up, you had John McNally. Hang on, one called the Searchers or something like that. And the other was the original Searchers. Because they just split, didn't they, over certain things. And that was the thing, So I think that's similar to what you said about the Drifters. Similar circumstances with the wonderful Searchers.
It's such a valuable thing, really, the name of a band. Certainly if you've had some hits enter the charts and people are aware of the name. And there's some dubious managers over the years, which we know in every industry, but certainly music, and there's a million and one in art as well, I tell you. But so there's some horrific stories about the members of bands becoming nothing more really than puppeteers on a wage to go play at a place, and then you have that whole thing of the thing that I was quite young when I first realised what was going on with mainly a lot of black musicians, people that we now respect as legends, that at some point they would write a song, go to record it, and then there would be someone, either be a manager or a producer, who would add their name to it. And the same thing happened to Buddy Holly with his producers. So automatically half of their income or half of the money was then taken to belong to the management and not the writer of the song, which is dubious and still goes on now, like I say, in industry, in art and in music and in literature. And it's just one of the downsides to doing something original, I guess.
Yeah, I mean, that's one of the reasons that Buddy Holly was out on the road in that fateful final tour in the middle of winter in the Midwest. What had happened was that because he'd originally signed to Decca and recorded That'll Be the Day with them before he was with the Crickets, he released a couple of singles at Decca, Sank Without Trace, and then he got involved with the Crickets, but the manager, whose name escapes me for the moment, what he did when they re-signed to Coral Brunswick, basically, part of Decca. When Holly had left, one of the stipulations was he couldn't record anything he'd recorded before. So what the manager did, he signed the Crickets and Buddy Holly to separate contracts. So in America, Buddy Holly's songs were released as Buddy Holly. The songs recorded by the same group. Some were released as Buddy Holly on Carlyle, I think, and some were released as the Crickets on Brunswick. And when they did, that was the day it was released as a Cricket song. Well, it with a Crickets label credit. And what happened was that he was later then fighting with the management and the record companies because he was having a lot of difficulty in getting paid royalties for all of the songs that he'd been on, because half of them were credited to the Crickets. So that was one of the reasons he was running out of money. Basically, he needed some moolah, so he went out, because nobody in their right mind would have toured in a bus in the Midwest in the winter.
Do you know what? Look at this TW, friend TW. And he says, the worst musical mistake I ever made was putting John McClane's American Pie on my MP3. It was like marrying a childhood sweetheart. The sex was great at the start, but I ended horribly skint in the acrimony.
Oh. For me, he wrote two of the greatest.
Oh, that's fantastic. Ian Ellis laughed.
And that was one of them.
Can I just answer this? And maybe after, don't say nothing, because I've got to go to the break. Don't say nothing yet, please, Terry. Frank, did you ever see the local group in the 60s called the Kirby's? They were brilliant, but not many people. Yeah, lads from Kirby, the Kirby's. Yeah, I certainly did. Well, listen, lads.
I know Jerry.
Yeah, and this is another one here. My parents were in a band called the Phantoms, playing all over the north of England in the 60s, playing all the big hits. Well, there was loads of cover bands, they just went around, didn't they? Like the Beatles played cover, didn't they?
The same.
Yeah. Well, it wasn't until Rubber Soul that they had a complete Lennon McCartney, Beatles writing credit.
Yeah, I think that some of the things here, though, honestly, some of the stuff, on here, the lads are putting up as and girls, can't leave Lynn out. But listen, I'm going to go to a break, and I'll see you after the break. Okay.
Okie dokie.
Okay, boys.
Right, Lee. Liverpool Turner says it. Listen, I'm going to get back to you. Derek, have you heard of the Kirby's, by the way?
I've heard of them, yeah. I mean, there were reportedly sort of over 350 bands in Liverpool in those early days. Funny enough, for something else, I was looking at a website today, and it listed a lot of them. I mean, some we recognise, but literally, they've got 350 and counting. I mean, there were just so many. And the thing about a lot of the groups is the personnel changed between them all the time. I mean, absolutely fascinating. When you look at the sort of Derry and the Seniors, Undertakers kind of level of group, the sort of not necessarily. I mean, a lot of them had minor hit records, I wouldn't go as far as to say that. A few of them had minor hit records, but the vast majority were basically, people with day jobs who just loved their music. And apparently, one of the reasons for the fact that this article had a little introduction. It said, when we put this together, I don't know, in 1990 or something, we had 250. Now we're up to 350 because there were just so many music venues in Liverpool that it was absolutely impossible to keep track of them. Again, I was reading something today about Toxteth. and the whole different scene in the Toxteth area. People like the Chants and Lord Woodbine, because you've got that very West Indian flavour to the music, and there's such diversity, I think, going across. But if I'm
sorry, can I ask you a question? You're answering it, right? And it's a music question, by the way. It is a musical thing. And you mentioned about millions of bands here, at the time when the Kirby's were going, especially in the 60s. And I'm going to ask you, leave out all the cream of the bands, from the Beatles down to the Searchers, down to, the Mersey Beats and that. Just forget them. Just forget them. Who are the best bands? Just name one or two. Who are the best bands besides them?
My two of my absolute favourite bands, because I grew up in that area, so I come from Connors Quay originally, and Thursday nights we used to have the Thursday night dance at the Civic Hall, and luckily because of our proximity to Liverpool, the Beatles never played there, but just about everybody else did. And my two favourite bands, and they're still two of the best live bands I've ever seen, were the Big Three and the Undertakers. They did have very minor hits, but they certainly didn't have anything like the success of the Searchers or the Swinging Blue Jeans. And I think they were just two bands. I remember seeing a Big Three interview, and apparently one of the problems they had is that the sort of management, the record companies didn't really understand how to translate their live energy into a recorded 45. But there were some fabulous. The Dennisons were.
I wish you wouldn't have mentioned them, because I was going to say, honest, I went to a college party, the entertainment, summer, the end of go for your holidays and whatever, and they had a dance on at the school, the school hall, and went along, me mate, and it was the same mate I seen the Beatles with. We bumped off, and we ran up to the Locarno was called then. It's called the Hippodrome, the light. I forget what it's called now. Anyway, we went up to see the Beatles. So me and him were there in this hall. These stupid little kids, scholars, and the Dennisons come on, and he went like that, and he said, "These are good, I said, he must have used to sneak out, from his house and down to all these places because he knew them all." Yeah. Anyway, I'm standing there, and it was the Dennisons, and do you know what they sang, Derek? Some Other Guy.
Oh, absolutely. There was
resonated with me even today.
Yeah. There were some songs like Some Other Guy you could guarantee. You'd normally be 2, possibly 3 bands on most gigs you went to, and Walking the Dog, Some Other Guy, Midnight Hour, you could guarantee at least one of the bands, if not probably all of them, would play those. They were about Love Potion Number 9. There were a couple of dozen absolute standard R&B songs that everybody learnt and played. I remember seeing King-Size Taylor and the Dominoes as well one night. They were absolutely amazing.
I'll tell you, it was one of two of my favourite groups, and Anthony will know these. Two of my favourite, honestly, the Dennisons, I was made up. And I used to go and see them. Became a little fan. And the other two were the Undertakers and Rory Storm and the Hurricanes.
Oh, yeah. Well, they were bigger than the Beatles in the earlier days. The Beatles were not. One of the arguments that the Beatles became so popular was because of John Lennon's relationship with, the guy who ran Mersey Beat, whose name escapes me for a moment.
Harry.
Harry, yeah. They were at our college together,
Yeah.
And I remember reading this article once that said they should really have called the Mersey Beatles, because they seem to get, according to this particular article, from this guy's point of view, the Beatles had far more coverage than any of the other bands.
There were friends from art school. I think Bill Harry, John, and Stuart Sutcliffe.
Yeah.
And in the days when Stuart wasn't going to do music, and he sold a painting, and John said, buy a bass.
Yeah.
Well, you do. Join the band, and there you go. But yeah, Bill Harry is a remarkable man, and he's still active now.
He's still going, yeah. He's still active.
And he's some of his. When you consider that the national press, and again, Frank and I think the three of us have talked about this. The national press sometimes forget Liverpool's here, and whether you're an author or an artist or a musician or a historian, they will choose to write about Manchester and maybe Glasgow and then London, but we're missed out. And in the 60s, not that I was actively buying the magazine and paper, but Bill was like champion of the cause, and he would write about all good things Liverpudlian, all from the area, not necessarily just the city, and then put it out through Merseybeat. Merseybeat became a really, really popular.
Absolutely.
Yeah.
And people have made. I'm going to ask you in a minute, Andy, when I say this, who's your favourite groups? Don't say the Beatles. Like what I've just said about the Undertakers and Rory and the Dennisons. I was just going to say, lots of people have made the money on the backs of the Beatles, and I know lots of money on the backs of them. I was asked by a fellow who owns a taxi firm. He said, "Listen, Frank, would you go around with 4 to 5 people in one of the taxis and give a story about about the Beatles?" And I said, "No." I said, because you can ask a German, you can ask American, you can ask a Japanese. They know more about the Beatles than I ever did.
Yeah.
They know more because they've gone right into it. I said, I've seen the Beatles live. I've seen it on the Locarno.
Yeah.
I said, I've seen them live when I was 13, 14. I said, but I never heard them. I said, because there was all the girls screaming.
That's right.
I said, but the point is, these know what colour socks they wore on the Thursday morning when they got up. I said, they know so much. I said, I won't be able to do that. He said, you will? I said, I won't. I said, I don't know. I said, the only places I know that they played at was the Cabin. And I got told then by Bob Hogarth, Jason's uncle, who was on my show, that the Beatles actually played at the Iron Door as well. And that's what I said. I said, we own the Iron Door, and he said the Beatles played there as well. And I didn't know. I was surprised at that. I said, and Blair Hall up in there, Walton Road there, or County Road. I said, they played there. I said, and that was it. I said, that's the only venues.
Liverpool played a lot as well.
Well, I wouldn't know that, because I don't know. If you know what I mean. These people do.
They do.
Know more. Go on.
No, I was just going to say, because we didn't have a topic, I thought, well, I'll have a look at the good book at things that happened today. And because we're talking about the Beatles, you could actually say, you could argue that on this day in 1970, it marks, if you had to put an end stop on when did the Beatles end, you could arguably choose today in 1970. because that was when the premiere of Let It Be it's premiered in Liverpool and London on the same day. I mean, they'd long since all fallen out with each other, and not one of the Beatles went to either of the premieres. So I think, you know, you could arguably say that today marks the spiritual end of the Beatles, 1970.
Wow. Anthony, I want them to carry on with that a little later. Anthony, who's your little fave groups, you know, the major ones?
It's hard to get away from them because I was born in 1961, and from my entire existence, they were there in the papers, on the TV and stuff. But having said that, my love for music was kind of, my mum loved music, and we're talking before about you know, musicians that kind of fall into, in and out of fashion, from Frank Sinatra and everything. So I kind of grew up with all of that music going on. But there's a wonderful guy in my life who taught me my first guitar chords. And he was what I think we generally call a Mersey beat musician, someone who played in bands at that time. And this lovely guy is David Williams, and he played in a couple of bands at the time, never achieved the fame that obviously the Immortals do, but he played in a band called The Number One, and other bits and pieces. And he worked with my dad, and when my dad said, "Oh, Tony's driving me potty, he's gone guitar mental," I'm like 12 or 13, Dave would call in, have a cup of tea and say, "This is how Buddy Holly played such a song." And for me, the fascination was watching someone else transpose what I've heard on record and on the radio. And I thought, that's like when you see these old movies about Egypt, and someone transcribes what's on the walls. I'm thinking, my God. So that became my way forward in music. So Dave Williams, I love you forever, and thank you very much. But I was aware of that, and Dave played in bands, and he would tell me about other bands, which I never got a chance to see, the Dennisons and stuff. By the time I got to see bands, there were a lot of Liverpool bands out there packing the houses. Supercharge, Albie Donnelly.
Albie,
yeah.
Fella, and he's been on my show. He said to me, you know, I said, "Do you want a cup of tea?" And he went, "Have you got anything a little bit stronger?" I said, "I've got a couple of bit." They were our kids, they were our Jarrett's beers. I said, "You know," I said, "Do you want a beer?" He said, "Yeah, drank a lot of them." Came down and he said, "Where's my beers?" I said, "Been drank." He said, "I thought you don't drink."
You got the likes of Andy Parker, who's played
brilliant.
Charging everyone. These are just fantastic musicians who travel the world and play. And for me, it was an influence to be in their company, and also obviously things take off at every generation. My kind of generation was the likes of the Christians would take off, and then they would remark on the fact that if it wasn't for the chance, there would be
I was going to mention the chance. I forgot. I couldn't think of the bloody name.
There's always that.
Thanks for mentioning the chance.
Most of Liverpool, I think, appreciates that and does that. You know, I learned what I learned because I used to watch so, and that's great. And we're talking about songs before, and I remember a story about, I think it was McCartney gave an interview, and it was about what you actually said, Derek, about if you all have your set list, and it's happened to me in bands years ago when I was in bands, and you go to a gig and it's a special day, and we're going to have 10 bands on today, we're going to have food, there's going to be everything. And the first band on does your entire set, you know, Ray Charles songs or whatever else. And you think, oh God, might get away with it if it went on that. And then the second band comes on and does the same set. So there's a point where you think, I say we can't go on. We haven't got anything to play. And I know McCartney said that's what made them jolt to say, right, our own. Just do our own. No one else is going to do it. And I love that concept. And I love that. I'm going back to talking about the language before, about this. There's always got to be a first. And who are the first and the biggest, and you never, whoever you are, and how many millions you make, you're not ever going to get close. But the idea for me was that the door was open. You can do what you want. You can write a song. You can try and do this stuff. And my whole world as a young lad was opened up by that. I think Liverpool is just a city of music. And literature.
Do you know what? I asked Anthony a question. Who's your favourite bands? Can I just go on and can I just go down this list? You know what the chat are saying. Please, that was great. That Anthony. What an encyclopedia. Anthony going around. From being born in 61, so thank you. It's great. So,
I know.
I loved it because I'm going to get back to you about Billy Kinsley.
Being born in the 60s is like there's the apprenticeship.
Yeah, that's it.
So what music matters after 1971? Yeah. Not much, really. No. Not much.
No. Can I'll show about these, right? Mark Simons, let me just go down this chat, please, boys. Even Elton John says, Mark, Lennon said the best live band in Liverpool was the Seegers. And Gary Rigby, listen to Bat Poem by the Liverpool Scene. I've read that.
Yeah, I've got to.
And Mark Simons again, George Harrison's favourite band were the Remo 4 that he worked with on his first solo album.
Yeah.
And Daryl Merry says, it's the Frank Carlyle show. I thought it was Hollies for a minute. Anyway, Gary Rigby again. Old girl group, the Liverbirds, Rip, Pam. Oh, yeah, one of them died. And Lynn says, wow, I don't know what the wow was. It must have been what I was saying before. What about Jason Eddy? He was Billy Fiore's brother. And the real thing were amazing, says Darryl. Gary again, the Mersey, I've got to go back to that. I've got to go back to what he said there. Because when I was with you, with the portrait of Billy Kinsley, I got a story off him about that. The Mersey's sorrow later covered by Bowie, and the eyes for just men and Wimple Witch. The eyes for just men and Wimple Witch. Getting back, get onto this. Honestly, get onto this, Terry. Anthony invited me down, to his big art studio, and the wonderful Billy Kinsley was there. Remember this? And anyway, you took a photograph of us, didn't you? Where Billy's like that on the photograph.
Yeah, when I was asked to do Billy's portrait for the book cover. Which I happily did, and what an amazing and lovely, truly lovely human being. Fantastic, but a wicked and sense of humour, which is always there. And I ultimately took about 400 photographs and did the portrait based on one pose he did, and then immediately Billy walked in the studio with Frank, because I think Frank had been to Billy's recording studio.
Yeah.
And they came in, And the first thing he said was, "Oh, there it is, there on the wall, the picture." So they stand by the picture, and immediately two of them do the pose that the picture's got. So I snapped it.
Oh, it was a great film. But what he showed me, I think you will love this, Derek. Because Anthony already knows it, what Billy said. And I was talking about,
What a history, Derek.
And Sorrow came up. And I said, well, what did you think of Bowie doing that cover version of Sorrow? And he went, yeah. I said, well, what did you think of it? He said, it was great. He said, Bowie's great. Everybody likes Bowie. And here's what he said. He said, like Johnny Cash, he said, everybody likes Johnny Cash, whether you're into heavy metal or anything, you like Johnny Cash. And he was so right. But here's what he said about Sorrow. When they actually did that, oh, we are, look. There we are, look. Me and the great Billy.
Right in the door.
Enough brilliant. And what he said about Sorrow, they put in a line. No, you're the devil's daughter, Sorrow. I think they put in that line, and they didn't copyright it.
Oh, wow.
And they lost out on lots and lots of money. You're the devil's daughter, Sorrow. I said, did you? He said, no. I think it was that line, but it was one of the lines anyway. But that stuck out in my mind. So it must have been that line. What the great Billy Kingsley, told me about, and he was a great storyteller. Can I say something about the gentleman next to Billy and I? And it's George Melly.
Yeah.
George Melly is one of the most flamboyant, or was the most flamboyant of Liverpool artists. And I seen him in a documentary, and it broke my heart, actually. It broke my heart, and here's what he did. I think it was, he was leaving a legacy, and he was dying at the time, and he was in a wheelchair, where he was living. And he was collecting money. He had this, like a tin can, one of them cans that you put money in. And he was shaking it, and he said to people. And what he was collecting money for was for the Palmos. The Palmos, the Moncur Palmos up in there.
Yeah.
Mackenzie and Palmos, they were the architects of it, Scottish lads. And he was collecting money for that. He wanted to save it. And it's down to why the Palmos here in Sefton Park is sublime. It's the way it is today, all through, because he was a great activist to save this Palmos because they were thinking of demolishing it. And he went out of his way, collecting money. That lovely, beautiful man, George Melly. Great Scouser. And I always say that, we talk about great Scousers in our time, and he's one of them.
He was proud to be Scouse. I never met Mr. Melly, never met him or his family, but when I started the 100 Heads, I wanted them in it, and we still had him then. So I wrote a letter, and someone said to me, he's not respond, and he's not very well. His wife might respond, Diana. But anyway, I sent a letter to tell him this is what I'm doing, and it's not it's not for profit or greed. It's just to signify people who've been. I remember as a kid watching him on TV when he did the whole thing of music and art, and there were various programs on television which you didn't see the like of before, and you haven't seen since. Very, very knowledgeable about both music and art. And he loved jazz and he loved blues, and that was my thing. So I wrote to him and didn't get a reply. And we started the 100 Heads, and then I got an email, and the email was from him, from George, and he basically said, I'm not strong enough to get on the train now to get to Liverpool. You are very welcome to jump on a train and come and see me in London. If there's anything you need, I'd be pleased. You paint the picture, and he went on to say how proud he was to come from Liverpool, and Liverpool is always his home. And then it was a short time after, I think it was about 2009, 10 that we lost him. Yeah. So I never, and the picture's still not complete. Pictures in storage, as are most of the works. So
it was so sad. It was so sad, you know, watching this documentary.
Yeah.
And you know, this great man. His family are actually buried in the ancient chapel of Toxteth, where all other great people are. And one of the great people as well is a lad by the name of Jeremiah Horrocks. And he did funny enough, I've got Gerald Gilligan, the astronomer, on next week. And I'm not going to talk about it, I'm just going to ask him about Jeremiah Horrocks, because Jeremiah Horrocks, I always forget one, he did the transition, 24 years of age, he died. He was a mathematical genius, and he did the transition of Venus, you know, when he was about 20, 21 or something like that. Going back to the, you know, the early part of the 17th century, the 1600s. What a man! What a young man! And he died when he was 24, and he's buried there, Jeremiah Horrocks. Yeah. And I'll never forget Manchester for this. Those jokes. They was hearing that Grenada reports, and they were saying about. He was talking about our lion. The lion, you know, the oldest steam thing in the world. And they said it was theirs. I was fuming, sitting on my own shouting at the telly as if they're going to answer me. I said, we own their house. They robbed it for 30 years. They got pissed off. Anyway, we got it back. But what they said about Jeremiah Horrocks, that he wasn't born in Liverpool, or he never mentioned. He said he was born in some little mad place in Lancashire, and he was buried in some little mad place in Lancashire. What the fuck are these talking about? What are these saying? He's buried. There's tombstones there. Jeremiah Horrocks, born and bred here in Liverpool. I don't know why they do it, unless they've got bad researchers. They've got very bad researchers to come out with that garbage.
We write history, though. We hear it all the time. We hear it musically a lot. We hear it with everything, really.
Yeah, absolutely. Absolutely. Anyway, I'll just say to these, just go down. Let me please. I'm sorry, boys. Sorrow, says Chris Dix. I think I had the 45 of that. I think I had the 45 of that. And my GF way back then sold my whole collection when I was traveling. It wasn't the money. They were my youthful souvenirs.
Yeah. That was the hardest thing you can do. The end of a relationship, if someone took all your albums.
Oh
my God.
Oh.
Never gonna happen.
Oh, well, it's happened to me, didn't it? I'm not mentioning the person's name when I walked out, you know. And our kid, our Stevie, it was his birthday last Saturday. I haven't seen him for ages. And he went to our Francis says, you're there. And it was an actual bin bag. A bin bag, you get bin bags. And there was a big black bin bag. He said, yeah, there's your gear. And I went, I've got more than that. Anyway, he opens it, and do you know what? One of my albums was in it, and I took great pride in it. Great pride. And it was, you might correct me here on this, Derek. I think it was called Blueberry Hill or something like that. Fats. Fats Domino. It was something called like that. Yeah. But Blueberry Hill was on it.
Oh,
and
wow.
It was signed. It was actually signed by
Fats. Wow. Oh.
And she put it in the oven.
Oh, that's worse than cutting your trousers up.
Because when I pulled it out, it was falling to bits. It was like this, and it was falling to bits, the cover. And
doesn't matter.
But that was it, it was gone. So, it's like Chris Dix there, he sold his, and that was his youth. He sold his youth because he wanted to travel.
I think part of the problem was you didn't realise you were living through history at the time. It was just the sort of pop music, as it were. It was the music of the day. And, previous to that, there hadn't been any nostalgia. There hadn't been the whole sort of covers world. And it's not really till you get into the 70s that you realise that, you should really have bought 3 copies of everything.
It's strange. You think everything. Well, here's a question out of the blue for all of us. Can you still remember the first 45 that you ever bought in your life with your own money going out?
Absolutely. Poor Jenny, the Everly Brothers.
Brilliant. Frank?
Can I just go to this? It's off one of our regular, it comes on again. George Melly also helped to save Sefton Park Palm. We mentioned all that when we first mentioned George, to be honest, Pat. He really did, mate. And he must have just come in as we were talking about the great Melly. And this is a good one. Look at this. Gary Rigby. I saw George Melly once, and these are regrets. We have lots of regrets. You and I, Derek, and you as well, Anthony. We must have regrets. And I saw George Melly once sitting outside a cafe in Soho, London. Wish I'd said hello. Think about it. Eric's Club, says Mark Simons. Facing the Cavern Club was pivotal in the late 70s for the great local bands Elvis Costello, OMD, Flock of Seagulls, Echo and the Bunnymen, The Mighty War, Teardrop Explodes, Frankie Goes to Hollywood. Well, do you know Flock of Seagulls? Frank Maudsley. We used to go on, me, Frank Maudsley and Frank Prendergast, Talking Frank or Speaking Frank, something like that, with Dean Sullivan on the sale when he was doing the radio. And he came out, Frank, and said, he never said Flock of Seagulls. He had a play on words about it. And he was banned. He was banned. Absolutely brilliant, but that was mad. And good night, y'all. Tempest. Yeah, we can't say that, Chris. You can't say that, mate. I'm sorry. And George Melly, we've said that. And never be frontman like Jürgen or you, Frank, as I have the perfect face, says Chris, for radio. Tar for another great show. Off to catch Cinder's carriage. Early start, Cinderella's, that is. Best wishes, Derek, Anthony, and chat. Not lovely. Thank you.
Yes, Chris.
Good night.
Not lovely. And the lovely Jean. A Frank and panel and chat. I've only now been able to tune in. Bloody hell. You haven't missed much. You better ask Pack Home Chan, about George Melly. I saw George Melly on the Mersey ferry, took a photo of him. Isn't that great?
Mm-hmm.
Isn't that great? To take a photograph. I always remember when I met Clint Eastwood, right? I know I'm dropping some names here, aren't I? But I met Clint Eastwood and he was sitting on his own, and I went over, had a chat with him, and he bought me a cup of tea. Well, he never bought me it, he just called over and he gave me. And when I was leaving, I said to him, because I was calling him Mr. Eastwood all the way through the conversation, because I love Clint Eastwood, it's brilliant. So anyway, as I was walking away, I said, Mr. Eastwood, it's been a great pleasure. Thank you so much. No one will believe this. And he went like that, hey, Frank. I said, what? He said, call me Clint. And I said, oh, well, all right. See you again, mate. So I got off. But the point is, no camera, no mobile phones then or nothing, to take a photograph or anything. And, you miss out on these bloody things.
Yeah, nowhere to capture the moment.
No, but as our Francine said to me, when she had a little camera, because she came down, to this function where I brought her down with me, and she took a photograph. I took a photograph of her and Billy Paul, not Billy Paul, Percy Sledge in the taxi, and she's got it. She got it in the slides here, and Percy Sledge, the legend.
Wow.
So it's just the way it is. It's just the way it is, that we miss out. Can I ask you, Anthony, and I'm going to ask you the same question, by the way, Terry. Have you ever missed out on anything, when you've never had a camera with you or anything?
Yeah, absolutely. When you consider that, it was. Cameras were always a big part of. My dad used to love cameras. So I kind of grew up knowing the importance of them. But in our day, and just before mobile phones, and even early mobile phones didn't have suitable cameras and stuff like that on them. A million and one things, yeah. But we remember them, So it's like that. Each phone now will hold like 62,000 images on it, and you don't go in an album. We don't put them anywhere, so no one really gets to see them anyway. And they're there as prompters to prompt us to say, remember that day in July when we met that, we're walking through the field and there's, John Lennon. Whatever. We just remember the memories, don't we?
Yeah.
And someone's got a photograph, and that's great. But
have you ever regretted anything about a camera or anything when Terry?
Well, the one time I think I probably would like to, if I could go back in a little time machine to one place with a camera, I was lucky enough to get a backstage pass for the Pink Floyd's The Wall at Earl's Court. My second wife used to work for the band. She was Waters' PA. And it was absolutely awesome being backstage. And it would have been really quite nice to have captured a few of those moments. I mean, I've still got
that. They were the original Pink Floyd.
Yeah, I'm a big fan of the Floyd.
Wow, yeah. They all are, really. I love Roger Waters because I'm on the same page as him with lots of issues that's going on today. Yeah. And he's such a human being. Such a human being and very feeling. He's got a heart here. He's got a heart, and
I get that with him as well. But the good thing is when you get to our age, is that we've got a lot of their stuff. We've got a lot of their memories. My youngest kids now, who are 22, have discovered So all the albums and stuff go to them, and the topic of conversation is like you said. I mean, kids are far more knowledgeable. I don't mean that in a demeaning way.
No, of course you don't.
People are far more knowledgeable than we would have been when we were their age.
Yes.
Because of technology and because of the information and because of books like Derek's and the information that's out there now that wasn't when we were kids. We painstakingly would buy an album or buy a book, or bit by bit you build up a collection, or you go see things. So it's wonderful that the world has opened up now in all of those moments, and the moments that you mentioned backstage. Someone will have taken photographs of that, and that will be on a site somewhere, and you recognise, the props, to whatever the bottle of Johnny Walker, or 6 or 7 or 8 or. No.
Well, I got a lift. I was in Germany, and I went over to see her. She was an international interpreter, a telephonist in Germany, Stuttgart. So I went over. Anyway, that's by the way. And I was coming home one night, going back to where I was staying. I was coming back to where I was staying. And the snow was up here, freezing. God blimey, freezing. And I turned to lift, and this Volkswagen pulled up. And it was this long-haired American, And I said, as you do, the door opened. And I said, I can see English. And he went, yeah, get in, man. Anyway, he was an American from Chicago. And he had long hair. Get onto this. He had long hair and a beard. And I had long hair and a beard then as well, So, and it was black then, to be honest. So anyway, it's out dinner. And he went, you want a beer? And I went, oh, all right. So he said, the fridge is there. So, and it's a little fridge, So I got a beer. I said, you have one? He said, no. So anyway, I was thinking it. And I said, as usual, what do you do? He said, I'm in the USAF. I said, the Air Force? He said, I said, surely to God, where you are, being long hair. And he did it, and I mean long hair, like yours, the way it is, Derek, now. And he said, yeah, he said, I'm undercover. He said, I go for the AWOLs.
Oh, wow.
So, but get onto this. We started chatting. And I was just chatting. And I went like that. I said, it's a funny, I said, don't take me wrong when I say this. I said, but it's a funny place, America. They've got some secret bases. And I wasn't even talking about NATO then or anything, I said, they've got some secret bases in America. He said, yeah, we've got one. And what he was talking about was Area 51. This is all before it came out.
Oh, wow.
In the late 80s.
Yeah.
And he said, yeah, he said, we have one. He said, and what we have there, and it took me by complete and utter surprise. He says, we have 3 discs with occupants frozen. I said, what do you mean discs? What do you mean discs? And he said, flying saucers. We have them. We've got 6 of them. And we have bodies frozen from those discs. That's what he said to me. And that was just getting a lift of this fella who'd been to Ghana. I asked him, I said, what are any AWOLs? He said, oh yeah. I said, we got them. He says, yeah, living the life of Carlyle. He says, because these were like AWOLs from, believe it or not, Vietnam, and they never gave up in getting them.
Yeah.
They never gave up in getting them. And that's what he told me about that. What do you think? Unbelievable, isn't it? Can I just go on to these? Steven Gerrard came to the soccer dome in Wigan. I had my camera and pen to get photos and autographs, says Paul Turner. But I decided to leave it with Stevie. This was before he broke into the side. My biggest regret.
But the memory is still there. He's got the memory. Happened.
Look at that. The Anfield Roar saying there. Gene Mark 2. All the big love arts. And you all right, sweetheart? And which is nice. Love is in the air. Everywhere I look around. It's great, this show, isn't it? Meeting Quentin Blake. Illustrator of my childhood book like Charlie in the Chocolate Factory. He was a patient where I worked. Such a gorgeous man. Oh, that lovely.
Yeah.
That lovely. Well, listen, lads. We leave it now because, Derek, have you got a bit of a cold or something?
Yeah, I've got a bit of lurgy, nothing serious. It's just that
No,
I'm coughing a bit.
No, it's just that, you've enjoyed the whole of the show, which is great.
No, I've really enjoyed it. It's been great fun.
No,
the other photograph would have been Isle of Wight, Jimi Hendrix Isle of Wight. I was there. I wish I had a camera for that. 1970.
Wow.
And the more historic that event becomes because of the names.
Well, I was up at A3 Race Course watching Michael Jackson when he was there. He, at the time, Jackson was the greatest entertainer in the world.
Yeah.
In the early 1980s, he was here at A3 Race Course. I've never seen so many people in all my life.
Wow.
Never seen. I don't know how many of them paid for because they're always pumped in. But what an entertainer that lad was.
Yeah. I mean, it's interesting to watch the old Jackson 5, early Jackson 5 performances where the lead singer is a sort of 12-year-old who's about this high and you've got all his older brothers behind him. I mean, really surreal.
And singing and twisting around and doing his little dance.
Awesome voice in the early, awesome voice all the time, but in the early days, I mean, really incredible.
Yeah, of course.
I believe a version of him, a few of the brothers are coming to Liverpool for this summer, August. There's a thing where they've stopped the Matthews Day Festival, which is a shame because that was fantastic. But to put a waterfront gig on, and I think the Jacksons are part of that. They're going to highlight one night. I can't remember if I saw it on flashing up on Facebook or in a paper, but it's out there. Yeah, that'd be interesting.
How about this for Derek? How about?
Thank you very much.
Yeah.
Thank you.
That's beautiful. Isn't that?
To be entertained and educated is a glorious gift.
Yeah, absolutely. Because look at me with my song. And I'm going to say to you, Anthony, you know the cavern?
Yeah.
You've got all the bricks, haven't they? They've got all the names on.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Do you think a brick should go in for my song?
Absolutely.
Another brick in the wall. Yeah.
Another brick in the wall. Try and get hold of it. Hold of Roger. Say that. Just another brick in the wall. Fantastic. Do you know what? We'll go now, and it's been a hoot tonight. It really is. And I think for June, she says, still crying tears of certain clips from yesterday, but okay, thank you. How was you? I don't know what she's talking about. But anyway, I'm Paul Turner. So you've got a great thing there, compliment there off T.W., my old mate. Really enjoyed the show. Big thank you, Frank, to you and the panel. Love the topics, very entertaining. And you know, we try to break. We'll have to have another. You know, another like open forum, shall we say?
Well,
that would be tonight.
It's kind of, isn't it? And I think the three of us have agreed basically that the best music that inspired us is historic rather than, you know.
Yeah, of course.
I'm not looking forward to another ringtone kind of song to top the charts. None of that really touches, but
no, it doesn't, unfortunately. It really doesn't touch. And this is the point. And when we see, you know, and I'm just made up that you took this photograph, I'm being honest. I'm made up you took that of me and Kinsley.
Well, even that, there's so much history in that. With Billy, you know, Billy took a job. He was telling me he took a job when he was 15, whatever school, where he would deliver paperwork to different officers around the city. And he always tried to make sure that he got the route by Matthew Street. So he had to take an envelope, leave it with Mr. and Mrs. Jones or whatever, and then you've got half an hour for them to read the document, sign it, get it back. So we'd go to Cavan as a kid and watch the bands and thought, that's where I'm going to go. And then pick up.
Me and the lads, you know, my mates then, younger lads, we always dressed up in suits and things like that, you know, every Saturday night. And if it was cold, you'd always wore crumbies.
Yeah.
And anyway, you just said, someone just said, shall we go down the cabin? Yeah. Right, this is through this. So we go down and we're on top of the stairs, you know, the way you get the queue, and then we're on top of the stairs, ready to go down. You know, you're at the bloody dome and, you know, like that, all right, so, you know. And the band rolls up. A band. Right, we were playing, and the next, you know, the bands are, and you know, we're just standing against the wall, letting them through, you know. We're standing there, and all of a sudden, through this, a drum, you know, a big bass drum comes bouncing down, and it's one of the lads named Benny Ambrose, you know, our mate, hits him, and it hits him on the back of the head, and he turns around, you know, just like that, and he was behind the drum. Was Dave Clark. That was the band. We started fighting with Dave Clark, and all the bunches ran up and chased off. Oh, go on, get up. Started fighting with Dave Clark. But anyway, that was the only time and last time that we tried to get into the cabin. And I went there one afternoon. I was a week or two before it shut down, and you know, so I did get in there. But, you know, that was a mad scene, that unbelievable, with Benny and Dave Clark 5 and the drum. I don't know whether they played or not, you know, I don't know, because the drum was bashed up anyway. But it was Dave Clark 5. And on that note, gentlemen.
On that drum roll?
On that, yeah, look at that. Derek. We'll have to have this open forum again. Is that okay with it?
I think so. I think it's great fun. It's great fun. Lots more stories, aren't there?
Yeah. And history was involved as well.
Absolutely.
And Anthony, you enjoyed it, didn't you?
I love it. I loved it, Derek. Loved the information. Loved the stories. Love it all. And music is a life force.
No, it's been great fun.
So we'll see you in a couple of weeks, Derek, with your, you know, with your little cough gone.
Absolutely, it should have gone by then.
Well and truly. Anthony, thank you. And don't forget it's Gerard Gilligan. I forget his name. Yeah. Gilligan's Island. And see you next week at the astronomer. I've got photographs I'm going to show.
Good.
I'm going to tell him about that fella. Do you think I should tell him about that undercover?
Yeah, he must be aware of these things.
Absolutely.
Yeah, I think I will, because they won't admit about UFOs or UAPs. They won't admit anything.
I'm sure they defrost some of them, and these beings become politicians.
The deep state.
And there's certainly a couple in America.
Thanks, fellas, and chat, says the D. Thank you, D.
Cheers.
Great show. Good night, guys, says Gary Rigby. But yeah, I think so, and these are the neocons of the deep state that are being unfrozen. Because they like going, the way these space explorers like going to different planets. These deep state people, they like going to different countries on their own planet and causing little wars. But anyway, thank you so much for tonight. It's been great, and the chat has been absolutely wonderful. And we've had a great time, chat. We really have. Love you, honest to God. I love you. Don't forget, I haven't got a show tomorrow night. I haven't got one. We're doing a special podcast on Jurgen Klopp. And it's just about Jurgen. I'm not interested in anything else. It's just about Jurgen. It's about memories of this great man, what he's done for Liverpool Football Club. And so try and join me, all you football fans out there. And there's lots who's on here, like the likes of Paul Taylor, the likes of Gary Rigby. There's loads. Jean's a big Liverpool football fan as well. I think that's why she's saying she was in tears. I haven't stopped crying. So it'll be... That's when I'll see you all on Thursday, people. Don't forget me film and review show as well. Do you do film and review shows, Derek?
I'm involved with, funnily enough, I'm involved with the Harrogate Film Society once a month. They show a music-based movie, and I do an introduction to it.
Hang on before you start coughing. Hang on a minute. How would you like to come on the... it's a Saturday morning, though. And it goes out at 10:30. The film and TV series review show. How would you like to come on one time?
Yeah, sounds good.
Would you?
Yeah.
Genuine?
Yeah.
Would you like to come on this Saturday?
I probably can't this week, to be honest.
Oh, okay then. But let us know.
Yeah, soon, though. Yeah.
Oh, let us know. That'll be fantastic. That'll be fantastic. And people... Just heard him there. You just heard him. He's promised. Know what I mean? And if he reneges on it, he's not going to have another open forum with me in it. We're dead sly, aren't we, Anthony? We take revenge. No, we don't. We're good. R&G, nice everyone. And a big kiss. Wonder if that kiss is for me. Anyway, it's,
probably.
Thank you. Thank you. Thank you, chat. Thank you, chat. Anthony, love you. You know that. And Derek, thank you so much. Thank you. And I'll see you in a couple of weeks, Derek. Please, a couple of weeks. And hopefully even before then on a Saturday.
Yeah.
On the TV and film and TV review show. Okay. You just go on YouTube and pick out any one of them. And you'll see what it's all about.
Okay. Sounds good.
You got to look at it for a couple of minutes and see what it's all about. Okay. Thank you. Thank you, Anthony, again. Thank you, Derek. Thank you, chat. Love you all. See you all on Thursday night for a special Jürgen Klopp thing. And thank you.
Cheers.
Cheers, Derek.